Good afternoon, everybody. I'm seeing that it is 1:30. I'm going to call our meeting of the Program Performance and Evaluation Committee to order. We start off with our introductions. I'm Liz Sheehan. I'm chair of this committee, a council member, and an HPI board member. And I'll send it this way.
I'm Amy Beasley. I'm also a council member.
Evan Charles in for Marty Jones with Community Action Council.
We'll come back then.
Okay, I can go. My name is Jordan. I work at the University of Kentucky at the Bluegrass Health Clinic. I oversee our EFA program, so there'll be several of us popping in because we have a lot of housing and we're just here to learn more about what the city's doing.
Hi, I'm Danielle Sanders from Community and Resident Services.
Sherry Pennington, Mountain Comm. Billy Love, member of the board.
David Shad, Hope Center, and the board.
Christina Ellison with Giddings Bluegrass. Lois Still, Director of Behavioral Health, Social Work, UK Healthcare, and member of the board.
Jeff Heron, Homelessness Prevention and Intervention.
Adam Kuhn, Homelessness Prevention and Intervention.
Chris Primo, New Life Day Center.
Janelle Walls, Arbor Youth Services.
Daryl Watkins, Auto Services.
And all the way in the back.
Mark Brewer, Hope Center.
Dustin Laupin, Hope Center.
I think that's everyone. Plus our Lex TV folks. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from the June 18th meeting. The full COC membership can vote on the approval of these. Are there any additions or edits for the meeting minutes? Seeing no one jumping in, I can take a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion to approve. I need it from Councilmember Beasley. I need a second. Second from Chris. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, thank you. That passes. Do you want to introduce yourself since we just did our introductions?
Yes, I'm Shannon Derrick with Passport by Melina.
And then today we have a few different program reviews. We have Arbor Youth Services for their street outreach program, which is a CDBG program grant. So each presenter has about 10-ish minutes to present, and then we have time for questions after each one. So Jenna,
Janelle.
Janelle, sorry, I didn't hear the L part of that. And Daryl, are y'all presenting for our read today?
I guess so.
Okay.
This is our first presentation, so we didn't know what to expect.
Okay.
So
We're a pretty informal group. We just want to hear about what you're doing, be able to share information with each other in the room. So don't be nervous.
It's too late. No, not my bad hand. Okay. Do you want to start?
Go ahead.
Okay. So our outreach center provides outreach, education, case management, and facility services to youth ages 18 to 24 who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. Our drop-in center is open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. until 3 p.m. We provide youth with a safe place to prepare and eat meals, shower, wash laundry, and receive services such as transportation, case management, referrals for mental health, basic need and survival items, and assistance with obtaining documents such as IDs, birth certificates, and social security cards. We also assist with helping them move towards stable housing. The Outreach Center provides a place for youth to connect with our housing staff, which includes our housing advocates, the housing coordinator, and our outreach worker. Staff connects with youth in hopes that they will accept case management services and work towards obtaining housing through our supportive housing programs, included rapid rehousing, or through other community service providers. We utilize COC to connect youth to housing options if they meet the eligibility requirements for our agency program, and we also receive numerous referrals from COC for both individual youth and youth families who are not appropriate for adult-centered housing programs. So looking at our numbers from last year, over the past fiscal year, We had a target of 75 individuals that we wanted to serve, and we served 183. Of those 183, 98 were identified as male, 73 identified as female, 5 identified as non-binary, and 7 identified as transgender. We had 93 identify as white, 2 identify as American Indian, Alaska Native, or Indigenous, 81 identify as Black, African American, or African, 1 identifies Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, and then 5 that identified as Hispanic. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep going. Our performance measures, our target for youth access in the shelter as a result of referral to the COC, we wanted 25, we served 42. We had 50 that we wanted to create 7 safety plans for. We did create 50 safety plans. We had a target of 1,500 meals and basic need and survival items to be distributed. We distributed 6,071. We had a target of 400 showers, and we did 576 showers. A target of 500 units of transportation, we provided 517. We had a target of 30 mental health referrals, and we completed 104. Of the targeted 75 youth we wanted to serve, we had 85% of those youth access and services will show an increased sense of safety. That was all of our clients, they achieved that. 35% of the 75 of them will achieve safe exits to stable living conditions. We had 100% of that 35%, so that number was 79 individuals out of the 183. And then we had a target of 50% of the youth pursuing educational goals or obtaining employment, and 62 actually completed that averaged out to about 47 individuals. And we had none that returned back to homelessness. Looking at our evaluation and improvement, RB Youth Services is dedicated to creating and providing a trauma-informed, safe, and supportive environment for 18 to 24-year-olds, offering not just a shelter, but also a wide, comprehensive range of services designed to both empower and uplift our youth. We recognize stability and structure are essential for personal growth, so we've made it a priority to enhance the level of structure within our programs and provide ongoing supportive training to staff. We have continued to utilize our calendar for scheduled events so that clients that utilize our drop-in center are aware of the opportunities to engage, learn, and grow. In our mission to offer holistic care, we have established partnerships with multiple community partners. Through our collaboration with Begin Again Counseling Services, we provide education and awareness on drug abuse and mental health and the effect of prolonged use. Our partnership with UK Healthcare provides education on the importance of physical health and also provides sexual education and HIV and Hep C testing to those that are interested. While our continued partnership with Goodwill provides valuable job training and employment services to help our clients build brighter futures. We've also partnered with Steins to provide direct education on food safety, nutrition, and cooking classes. Okay. We've teamed up with several mental health agencies as well. So we are partnered with Willow Creek Counseling and Associates and Begin Again Counseling Services. Looking ahead, we want to continue to expand our network of community partners that share our vision and aim to provide more comprehensive care and support. Our goal is to continue building a robust community that empowers our youth to thrive and reach their full potential. We are looking to expand our outreach hours, so we are currently training our staff so that our drop-in center is open 24 hours, 7 days a week. We have our staff hired. We're just going through the training process, and we'll start our test week next week. So we'll have our clients not on site, but we'll have our staff there 24 hours getting our program together. We are also collaborating with Fayette County Public Schools to create a program that is specific to housing insecure students that fall within the age range that we serve. To ensure effectiveness and continuous improvement in our programs, we conduct evaluations to both our employees and our clients through surveys. The evaluations are essential in gathering feedback from those directly impacted by our services and those providing the services. The employee surveys help us understand the strengths and challenges within our team, which allows us to make informed decisions on training, support, and program management, whereas the client surveys provide valuable insight into the experience of those that we serve, helping us identify the areas of enhancement and better meet the needs of our youth. So that's our outreach program.
Thank you. And then if anybody has comments or questions, now's the time.
I was just curious about some of the feedback that from your evaluations that you have received for improving your program, or what's going well, or?
So our clients are very honest with the feedback. Very honest. So it has helped us a little bit with our programming. We are bringing in different groups to provide services to the clients, and we found that some of our clients were not benefiting from the groups that we were bringing in, and it was re-traumatizing some of the trauma that they've already experienced, so the feedback's been really good.
I was going to ask about some of your outcomes and data. For example, target for a person served was 75, and in this annual term, you reported 183 served. And I'm just wondering how that compares to previous years. For example, have we had kind of that kind of number of persons served in previous years, or is this maybe reflective of kind of some trends that we've seen with youth homelessness and reflecting a true increase in the number of people that are accessing your outreach center?
So it was an increase. It is a significant increase from the previous 2 years. Last year we did service, I think it was 165, so this year it's increased a little bit. We saw a lot more intakes coming in between the months of April and June. And I think that has a lot to do with the outreach team from the other agencies that's been out in the community and directing them to us.
We definitely want people to find our youth provider.
Did you also notice more mental health concerns or mental health referrals, or about the same?
Well,
A little bit more.
yes, there's been a little bit more mental health concerns. Our clients are not as forthcoming when they first come in, but us having the therapists there on site has helped a lot, because they don't want to participate in the groups, but if they know that there's someone that's maybe sitting on a porch or next door that they can just kind of go out and talk to, they've been more open to that.
Other questions or comments? Could you talk about the target that you have for the 1,500 meals and basic needs survival items? Because that's so high in comparison to your target with 6,000. So how does that break down between like meals served versus like kits given, or how does that 6,000 get calculated?
So that would include meals and our basic need items, so hygiene items, meals, clothing. I think that was it. Shoes,
clothing, all that gets included into it.
The majority of that number is meals.
Meals.
Yeah, the majority of it is meals.
How do you think it's like 75% of it is meals?
Yes.
That's a lot of meals. How do you have particular agencies that you work with for that, or is it like all prepped there?
It's a
Or
mixture
do you
of
get
both.
meals donated, or?
Mixture of both. We do have some of our community partners or churches that do bring us meals and things like that, and a lot of it is prepped and cooked, or just food that's available for them that they can do themselves, like ready to go meals like noodles and stuff like that. All that gets included into the number.
We have a group that brings groceries once a week. We have a church that does a meal the first Wednesday of every month, another organization that does it the third Friday of each month, and then we have pizza night every Friday night. So.
I know our Department of Housing Advocacy and Community Development last year signed up to volunteer one night and go over and did a cookout with the staff and the residents. So I know a lot of times it is kind of nice that they can bring in organizations, not just to receive the meal so they don't have to worry about it, but the kids get that feeling of people being interested in learning more about Arbor and about the youth themselves. I think it's helpful for them to see that the community cares. So I definitely want to encourage others in the room, if you have a group that you're active in, to always keep it in mind as a potential opportunity.
Any other questions or comments for this group? Okay, thank you. Our next presentation is for the Hope Center Emergency Shelter. I assume this is you, Dave.
That's me. I have a couple presentations at the emergency shelter and street outreach. So start with the shelter, and I won't read this to you, honestly, because I forgot my glasses, but I think I know what we do, so I'll try to explain. Hope Center, of course, has been around since mid-90s, so we're pretty familiar with how it works, giving emergency shelter to adult men. So you can see in last fiscal year we had 1,622. So, just looking at comparison-wise, to jump ahead to a question, it was around 1,300 the year before, so we definitely had an increase in our last year versus the year before. So what we do at the shelter is essentially, obviously we provide overnight shelter. We serve 3 meals a day. We provide basic case management support. So we provide, we meet with clients when they enter, provide them with essentially a psychosocial assessment, look to assess the needs that brought them into us. We have a licensed clinical social worker, Amber Cronin, if you all know her. She won't allow me to say how long she's been around, but she's been around a while. She used to work at MASH, if that tells you how long she's been around. But she was the original Hope Mobile person when the Hope Mobile used to be a project between MASH and Hope Center, and I don't remember that. So. But in any case, so we provide case management support based on the needs that are identified in intake assessment. So a lot of that ends up being helping people sign up for insurance, sign up for SNAP benefits, sign up for insurance, and then making a lot of referrals. We have a lot of medical needs in our population, also a growing number of mental health needs, and obviously referring into some of the substance use programs that we have developed all around us. We have lots of substance use programs. So we do that at intake, and then, over the last few years we have sort of revised some of our procedures, which I'll talk about later, but one of the things that we're doing now is being more housing focused from intake. So previously we had more of a strategy to just approach those who had been with us for more than 2 weeks or a month. And what we found is we missed a prime opportunity for engaging some people as they enter, and that offers also the chance of diversion if we're able to start talking about that from intake. So again, I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But so we also assist with obtaining employment. As I said, we're trying to be more housing focused, so a lot of referrals for housing, coordinated entry assessments, that sort of thing. We also have a primary healthcare clinic on site, operated by Health First Bluegrass. They provide medical care, but also can refer for dental. They do some behavioral health stuff at our facility. We have a psychiatrist here 1 day a week, and they do some telehealth with other behavioral health needs. So they manage a lot of our medical needs. And then, we refer out for specialty care and that sort of thing. In terms of the population, as I mentioned, 1,622 on this past fiscal year. I did not include our SOS detox program because it is not funded here. So, but you can typically add, let's see, you can add a couple, maybe 300 more people to that that come through SOS every year. And the majority of those are homeless. 90% of those are homeless. And hopefully they end up coming to our shelter after the fact. But in terms of demographics, we served 116 veterans, 213 that were chronically homeless. I think that number's higher, so I'm not really sure why it's so low. Youth under 25, 133. So I think, as with Arbor, we do see a growing need in that population. And I over the years, I've tracked like the trend in that population, and it goes up and up and up, always. And you can see the age breakdowns there, pretty evenly distributed across the different age groups. We do have sort of this growing over 55 population, and of course the younger population. So we're growing at the extremes, which isn't really a surprise to us. I think it follows about what we would expect. In terms of race and ethnicity, we have 1,026 who identify as white, 429 Black African American, Hispanic 62, and then the others fill in there. Multi-race 71. I will say the Hispanic number in HMIS has been lower ever since we separated that out, because I see a lot of people who end up on multiracial because they are like white and Hispanic or whatever in Hispanic. So they end up in that multi-category, but in reality should be in the Hispanic category. And I can get a number for what that is and share with you all. But, just want to point that out because I think it seems like an obvious flaw in the system since that change.
We can always return to it, but I find it interesting because some providers have had the reverse experience where because it's a standalone option, they have more people reporting. So I think it's interesting to see that different populations of providers are seeing different things.
That is interesting. So in terms of our outcomes, we provided everyone with overnight shelters, so that's pretty easy to accomplish. 84% of households accessing our case management services. Predominantly those who are not are just our overnight stayers, because we have the system set up so as if they are there any length of time, they have to go through that process to engage in any of the other services. So the majority of people who don't engage in services are just people who are there for a very brief time, maybe over the weekend or overnight. That doesn't say there's high quality services for 84%. That would be unrealistic, but they are at least contacting our case management staff, our clinical staff in some way. So we have tried to set that up to increase that number so that more and more of them are seeing someone other than just front desk staff. Average length of stay is for stayers 32, the median being 7. That's a huge difference. So you can, the reason for the huge difference there is that we have people that are on very extreme ends of the spectrum. We have very long-term stayers, more than a year, and then we have a significant group that are there 24 hours, 48 hours, so very short-term stayers. 2% exits to permanent housing destinations. That number drives me crazy, but I'll come back to that too. Participants returning to homelessness within 12 months, about 18.5%, which is again too high.
We'll also have a note on that when we get to discussion.
Yeah, and then removed for rules violations, about 9%, which is percentage-wise was equivalent to what we had last year. And I will say that this is very hard to put a number to, because one of the things that I did not include here are people that are restricted for sex offenses. And the way we record that is all the same, so trying to tease that out is not easy. We need to find a different way to include that. But back to the permanent housing issue, I think one of the things that we see that we've had an ongoing issue with over the years is that people leave and just don't tell us where they're going. Hopefully, one of the side effects of increasing the case management relationship will be that we know where more people are going. So typically that 2% are people that we have placed in housing. So as opposed to people who have self-resolved or report back to us. I used to do a lot more investigating where people go, but I just don't do that as much anymore.
So just to quickly ask then, on that, when you're saying they're leaving and they're not telling you where they go, so you can't count them in that permanent housing destination because you can't confirm it.
Right. Or they are going to another program before they are housed, which also would count for that program and not for our program. So if they went to another transitional location or like a sober living house and then were housed from there, yeah. So that counts against us as well. And I think we have tried a lot of different things over the years. We've had like a sort of like an exit book at the front desk. We've had our front desk staff, ask people who appear to be leaving where they're going. And that gives us sort of nominal information, but the majority of people just leave and don't come back.
There's also, from an HMIS standpoint, kind of a catch-22 around exit destination data. HUD doesn't want you to say unknown, disappear, because that's a non-locational value. It doesn't convey any information. So for us to improve data quality on something like that, we've shifted to, if we don't know, we kind of assume that they're exiting to a place not meant for human habitation or the streets. Because if they're leaving shelter and they don't have anywhere else to go, that's likely where they are. So it solves that data quality problem, but then it kind of affects this number as well because the number is higher.
And it is a frustrating, and I think what happens is that sometimes that returns to homelessness number creeps up there because exits without, or for people who are not ready, kind of contribute to that. And I think that's one of the intentions of increasing the case management services as well. We completely restructured that over the last year, is to try to make sure people are ready before they leave. Because, we have tried to push people out and sort of encourage people to go out and do that, but what we find is that many people are not ready and will just end up back with us if we don't make sure that they have as many tools as we can give them. So in terms of ongoing evaluation, obviously reviewing the HMIS information, we have weekly staff meetings to review cases. We have developed sort of a smaller offset of that to deal with some of the more difficult cases that have been with us a long time and are harder to house, and have tried to focus our efforts on some of those individuals, which typically are our SMI clients or clients who have like some cognitive issues, clients with significant medical issues that make placement for them difficult, which is another population we see more of. But we have this treatment plan group that meets every week, just reviewing those cases. Again, like the overall length of stay, we decreased by 11 days over the past year, so 43 days in FY24 versus 32 FY25. So that is pretty significant. So I think part of that can be contributed to more of the focus on housing, because again, even though we are not specifically placing them, I do feel like we're getting more people who are leaving into better housing situations. So that's a significant number. And just a little bit about this. And I don't know if there's whole lot, do we? So roughly a year ago, we started sort of re-strategizing about how we handle our shelter population. Historically, as I mentioned, if you're there longer than a couple of weeks, we placed you into a dorm. And then it was just sort of automatic. You got the dorm placement based on how long you were there. And we sort of reshuffled that, and now we have a system where our new intakes are going into a dorm, and in order to maintain that dorm space, they have to work with their caseworker on a housing plan, or a service plan of some sort. But they have to be working, actively working on a plan, and we meet with them weekly to verify where they are on that and just sort of the process. And I think we've received some positive feedback on that. We've also received some negative feedback on it because it's different. The negative feedback has mostly been, I've been here a long time and now I have to do all this stuff, which is exactly the point. It's not, the irony of them being the reason that we created this is not lost on me. But so it has caused some growing pains, particularly in those people who have been here longer. But I think we have received some very positive feedback that people initially, when they're initially coming in, they're receiving help sooner, and it helps us to more accurate. I mentioned like diversion. So people coming in, we can find alternatives that get them out of there faster. So it has worked, and I think this is an ongoing process. As we move, we're opening that transitional housing building. It actually opened this week, started moving people in. So our veterans area that was in the emergency shelter is now freed up. That's 30 or so beds. And so we're able to free up some space in the shelter for some of the clients who are, on the floors or in the hallways. So our goal is to get all of those people off the floor and out of the hallways and into our dorm space. So we're shifting some things around as a result of the transitional housing building opening, and hopefully that will contribute to improving the quality in the shelter, but not too much because we don't want people to stay. Any questions?
Is the 2% pretty similar to years past?
It is, yeah. And I think we've gone up and down and done a lot of different like programmatic things, but it's barely moved the needle.
For those 2% that are finding something permanent, are you working with other like external agencies, or is it more your case manager literally finding someplace, or how have those 2% I guess been successful?
A combination of the two. What we have done over the last year and a half or so, I've had a fund for rental assistance for first month's rent, security deposit, and that has helped a lot of the people move out quickly. What we've found is a lot of the chronic stayers have not utilized that. So that has been a way that we have been able to quickly place people into housing without the case management support. But we have had probably half of that group has had some interaction with other agencies. So it's a good thing.
I'll go ahead and throw this out there because it's something that in our office we've been talking about and shared with David, and I want our other providers to kind of know. We, in trying to help confirm Hope Center's percentage of returns, notice some discrepancies between what data is pulling in our system performance measure reports versus what data is pulling on a standard report like a CAPER or an APR. What we found is, first of all, it's not even calculating the same number of persons who exited to a positive destination within the time frame. And then it's also, we're seeing that some of the individuals that are showing up as returns might not necessarily be reflected in that APR. So just when you're using, you are probably more likely to use the APR and the CAPER. If you're using the APR and you're seeing some kind of information that doesn't look correct to you, for example, maybe more persons have exited to permanent housing than what's being calculated, let us know. We've already been in communication, starting to talk with our vendor about one of those or both of those reports having some kind of a defect that needs to be addressed. And that's important, not just for you to know the work that your program is doing objectively, But also for us as a system, we don't want that to be skewed in the data that we submit to HUD. So that was something I wanted to put out there that may be impacting things like the percentage of exits to permanent housing and potentially the returns. We landed on the most accurate version of the data that we could come up with, but we're still suspect of some of those reports. Other thing I'm going to ask or mention, percentage of households removed for rule violations. You have 41 in the parentheses. Is that 141?
I think yes, I think
that 141 is 8.7%. If it's 41, there's only 2.5%.
I believe it's supposed to be 140.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that too. I was hoping nobody knows. Thanks.
Leave it to me.
I will also add, one of the things that we refer a lot of people to is sober living, and of course that does not reflect as being permanent housing. So that we have a very significant number of people who leave to those programs. And that's going to show up as temporary housing.
I have a question. So you mentioned that there was 133 18 to 24-year-olds. Do you all offer any special targeted case management for those clients? Do you partner with any agencies that offer that sort of case management?
No. And, to be honest, a lot of those are people who come back and forth from Arbor's program. So I think we have a lot of overlap between our clientele. So many of them are already receiving services at Arbor, but we do not have any specialized.
Okay. Would y'all ever consider requiring them to seek case management immediately? Because I know even at New Life, when we have kids that come in there that are 18 to 24, I try to target them pretty quickly because we don't want them to become chronic. And just because they're so vulnerable at that age, do you guys, do y'all have any way to target them faster just to get them out of there quicker?
Yeah, I think we could definitely do more in that area. And it's one of those things that they very often show up on our radar because they are more vulnerable population. So almost automatically we tend to see them earlier. But I do kind of like the idea of having some specialized case management. So if you have any suggestions, that would hit me up. Because I think that is a very difficult group, and very often we will direct them to Arbor for some of the services there. But it's such a tricky population, and they very often don't fit well with the rest of our population, which tends to skew old.
I'll throw out that that's also something that doesn't have to be approached solely by one provider.
Right.
If the COC has an interest, we can always establish a work group that would work on identifying our 18 to 24-year-olds within our system and making some concentrated efforts collaboratively towards that group. We have talked that since 2020, each year we've seen at least a small increase in our youth population in our point in time count. So I think that's an idea that extends way beyond the Hope Center for us as an opportunity as a COC.
Yeah, just in general, because they tend to be very quiet and very scared into themselves. They don't, even at the day center, which is kind of a scary population, they tend to isolate from, from case management and from other clients. I also have a question, about the 65 and over population. Is there any special case management for them as well, end of life case management? Not to say that 65 is end of life. I just turned 50. But you know what I'm saying? We have that population at the day center as well. And a lot of them, when they get to their 70s and 80s and they don't want to be housed, or they don't want to be sheltered. I have several that receive SSI in their late 70s, early 80s that just do not want to be housed.
Yeah, just refuse, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we see that as well. A lot of that population are our chronic stayers, so they are very difficult to house. We have had a lot of luck with some of the senior housing over the past year, but that is almost the younger end of that spectrum. Those who are older tend to be more resistant. But again, no specific like target of that group. I will say back to the youth, we do have a system in place where our staff, if someone comes in after hours in that youth age, they notify Amber to make sure she has them on her radar. So it's more of an informal process, but they do tend to be more high risk, and we want to make sure to identify them. But we have a lot of people who are who have outside case management who are 65 or older. And we have had, University of Kentucky came in and did a study on the aging population and some of the particular issues that they face, and I'm hopeful that, so we had some recommendations out of that, but I'm hoping that we can develop more services towards that group as well, because it is growing.
Two quick thoughts. That information about the aging population might be something interesting for us to look at in data and systems integration.
Yeah, we should maybe
not
get
sure
that
what all includes, but let's think about that. And then we have the advocacy committee next week. If you would like me to throw on the agenda some discussion about our 18 to 24-year-olds, we definitely can.
Yeah, that sounds good.
We'll do it.
You know, Abby, you've worked with her too,
Yeah.
right? We should maybe see if she'll come and talk about that.
Yeah, she is Abigail Latimer, a professor at UK. She is going to be at some point presenting some information to our board about a hospital point-in-time count that we helped inform. It started with just UK hospitals this year and will expand in the future. Hopefully to other hospitals, but we thought that would be interesting. And then they also are interested in developing some initiatives around grief for providers. Knowing that a lot of us, we experience secondarily the trauma of our clients, as well as those of us who have done direct service for any substantial amount of time can undoubtedly think of at least one client they've worked with that has passed away. And then unfortunately, you get to be in a role like mine, you experience that a lot. So I think that would be some interesting tools for our frontline staff.
Questions or comments for this presentation? Well, it's not really what, I'm so curious when you said that people that are like 70 and 80 really don't want to go into housing. Do you have an idea of what's sort of making that response?
One specific gentleman I have that comes to mind, he's, in his early 80s, and he, I ask him daily, do you want to go to St. James Place? Do you want to, these places that would actually be kind of more communal, because a lot of them miss their community, and that's, I think, across the board in the population I work with. I think he also experiences a lot of anxiety, and he gets really on the defense when I try to mention housing, and says, I don't want to talk about it right now. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to be rushed. And he says that a lot. I think some of it's mental health. I think with all our population, some of it's mental health, and some of it's just. I think he's been homeless for quite a long time, and he just doesn't. It's what he's used to, and I think that's a lot of them. They're kind of chronically homeless. He doesn't even stay at the Hope Center. He stays on the street, and he just he comes to the day center every day, gets his coffee, his donuts, he gets his SSI, so he sometimes buys his lunch, and he just kind of chills out there and watches Netflix, and he seems fine, except for occasionally he'll get beat up and have injuries and things like that, but he's also diabetic, and there's all these underlying issues that I'm what is going to happen to him? Is he going to die on the streets one day? It's a little concerning. Recently he did mention that he was going to go visit family in Texas, so maybe they'll keep him, not keep him, but let him stay. But But yeah, that, it is concerning to me that the population seems to be, those two ends of the spectrum seem to be growing, and, you know, there's no, there doesn't seem to be a lot of specific help for those I mean, there is, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of, coordinated, specific, you know, help for those populations. So yeah, I think it's mostly mental health and just security, feeling secure where they are.
What we see is a fear, like people with chronic illness who are older, a fear of living alone as well. Even when you're able to offer like in-home services, like home health, whatever, but there's still a resistance to that. And a lot of our returns end up being people that are in that age group who go to St. James or they go to Lexington where they just don't like it.
I don't want to get into case conferencing, but think about connecting that gentleman with paramedicine.
Okay.
Since you mentioned diabetes, that makes me think of health things that aren't probably being met, and then maybe their social workers might also get somewhere, so just think about it.
Well, we have the clinic that's downstairs, and he's gone there quite a bit. Just like he has had an injury on his face since I started working at New Life, and he'll just gush blood sometimes, and he just doesn't. He's been down to the clinic, and they offer treatment for him, and he just doesn't keep up with it. So it's an open wound all the time, and it's you know, it worries me because he is diabetic. Wounds don't heal quite the way they should. So yeah, I'll definitely mention that.
Very persuasive with paramedicine.
Yeah. Okay.
If you don't mind me asking, has anyone been in touch with Bluegrass Area Agency on Aging for you?
I'm not sure, but I can try that too.
Because he could probably qualify for Medicaid waiver as well.
Yeah. Like I said, I know he has SSI because that was the first thing I did when I got there to find out who had SSI, because I was like, all of you are going to St. James Place, like right now. Like as soon as they have an opening bed, you're going to there right now. I discovered a lot of my clients there have SSI and then are still just due to either affordable housing or issues with being in tight spaces. You know, that seems to be also a thing. The tight spaces kind of freak them out a little. You know, they mentioned that St. James Place, as lovely as it is, I try to describe it as a dorm room, whereas they describe it as a jail cell. I'm like, no, it's a dorm room. It's like you're in college again. It's great.
Be interesting to ask them, like, what type of housing would make you take like one step closer to considering moving into housing, just to like hear their feedback about like what type of housing or services they see as moving them towards housing.
Yeah, a lot of them, I've asked that question and a lot of them answer, you know, like they want to be in better neighborhoods. They want to be, you know, with more space. They want what everybody wants. They don't want to be in a neighborhood that they fear for their lives. They don't want to be, in a closed-in box. They want to be like everyone else, like
Sometimes
everybody.
Sometimes it plays into like perceptions on safety. I had a call yesterday. I was talking with a 61-year-old woman, and we were describing different options, and she was adamant that one of these places was worst neighborhood ever. It was 3 blocks from my house, and like it's totally a pretty safe area of town, and so I think sometimes it's just also perception.
That's true too. Yeah. Where I live downtown between 7th and 6th Street on Upper, so I know bad neighborhoods, and and my car just got broken into. So if you see a car with glass in the back seat, that's mine. And because it's very close to a Kia, and they thought they could steal it. Yeah. So I mean, I get neighborhoods are sometimes what you make them, and I try to help them with that as well. But you know.
Yes, sir. Our next presentation is the Hope Center for the Street Outreach Program.
All right, so our street outreach program, we serve as initial contact for individuals who are homeless in the community, and do many things, but we try to engage them in coming into shelter, and if that isn't an option, to work with them on trying to find housing, employment, documentation, signing up for benefits, just whatever the services that they may benefit from. Obviously, as we were saying, not everyone wants to come into shelter. So for those that are not, we still offer services and do what we can to help those individuals as well. We do a lot of response to calls that Jeff's office gets or that police get, parks, other private citizens who identify encampments and ask us to check things out. So a lot of those go through Jeff's office, and we respond to those. We also work with code enforcement and parks or anyone else when encampments are being taken down. We make contact and offer assistance, but also continue to make contact with them to try to offer some options. But we attempt to work closely with them in order to just try to establish a relationship, figure out why they're in the situation, what's brought them to homelessness, and try to help them figure out a way. And Mark and Dustin are back here, and they could talk in circles about this. They do a great job. And we sort of have two components. We have our basic outreach program, which makes an initial contact with people, again, in response to those calls. And then we have a smaller group of people that we do more intensive case management for. And this includes things like signing up for insurance, obtaining benefits like SNAP or whatever, applying for Social Security, getting medical care, mental health care, also working on housing. So we do some of those more intensive cases as well. So we served 345 persons, 323 households. Obviously, the majority of the people that we serve are individuals. We did have 6 children throughout the year last year. 208 males, 126 females, 1 non-binary, 14 veterans, 122 chronically homeless, and 10 youth that we identified. And you can see here, again, a smaller number of youth than in the shelter, because we know youth are better at hiding in couches or in places that will not get on people's radar. They're very savvy. So we have the bulk of our population is probably between 35 and 54. That's the bulk. So again, 345 clients, about 44% referred to coordinated entry. And a little bit about that, I think part of the reason for that is trying to be more targeted about who we put on the coordinated entry list, making sure people are actually document ready or they're ready to be housed. Both at the shelter and with outreach, there was a time where we put everybody we contacted on coordinated entry, and that just makes for a huge list that is hard to do anything with. And many of those people you never have contact with again. So this is just trying to have a more targeted focus on who we put on that list and make sure that they're in a position that they're ready to move in. And if they're not, we'll work with them and put them on that list when they are. 9% of our stayers and leavers increased income. That's below target, but actually I'm pretty impressed with that number. That's way better than our emergency shelter. And then we had 32% of that group who were enrolled in intensive case management, which I think comes out to 84, 85 people. So a pretty significant number of individuals that we're doing that intensive case management with. 1,490 contacts, and 63% of those that we worked with on the intensive case management were placed into permanent housing. Again, I'll reference that housing assistance fund that we have. We utilize that pretty heavily, particularly around the end of the winter shelter. We housed a lot of people then, so we were able to tap into that. I spent all that money. I spent all of it. ask for more. So, that's the, as a complete aside, that's the message that I give people and businesses is if you want to really help, you got to help us find a way to house people. So I think that is more commonly become the message that I give people when they ask me about homelessness. I operate a shelter, we need shelters, but we need housing first. And I'm preaching to the choir. So we review these cases again weekly, monthly HMIS reviews, and we just as a management team also review the performance outcome data. Mark is our HMIS person, so he handles all of that for us. Does a great job. But yeah, that's our street outreach program in a nutshell. I think there's obviously more focus on street homeless now than there ever has been, so I think that will change a lot over the course of the next year, and our focus will be a little more targeted and probably intensive. Right now we work a lot with lots of different departments. We'll probably work more with the police over the next year as we try to deal with some of the issues, particularly downtown. So I think our outreach program could significantly change over the next little bit.
Questions, comments?
I'll have more of a comment than a question because I work with these guys every day. Don't have a lot of questions for them. But from having written some letters of support for this team, for grant opportunities that they've pursued to try to expand our outreach presence, they have 25% of the total persons served since they started the program that have exited to a positive destination. So sometimes that is shelter because it is an improvement over being in a place not meant for human habitation. But that's a really significant outcome that stands out because even if we are getting people even just to shelter alone, that creates more stability for us to often move towards permanent housing. And the permanent housing numbers themselves are really solid as well. So just want to make sure that that gets highlighted because that's a great achievement. So thank you for your work.
And I will mention, as we have been very active in pursuing funding, as Jeff mentioned, we did get some opioid abatement funding from the state to expand our outreach efforts out of the Hope Mobile in the evenings. So a lot of that is focused on harm reduction. As much of that is allowed now, but it's focused on harm reduction and making referrals to treatment, mental health, substance use, that sort of thing. But it does offer us the opportunity to expand that service into the evenings, which we have done already. We started doing that several months ago, but now we can do it on a more kind of official capacity. And I think, Dustin, we have somebody starting in the next couple of weeks for that. So you will see the Hope Mobile out more, and you will see it in probably locations that you haven't seen it before. Typically during the day we park at some of the downtown churches, but in the evenings we're going to be more mobile, just more targeted with where we're parking, like concern areas or areas that we can go to address sort of larger needs. And of course we will be doing some of that, Narcan distribution or some of that other harm reduction stuff, but we can also offer other services because it gives us a sort of a home base. I think we applied for 4 federal grants for funding for outreach. So
we applied for one recently. We helped UK Healthcare apply for a Hep C elimination grant with CMS. I think Bluegrass Care Clinic might be a partner on that application as well. So fingers crossed, because that would be another great resource that can get a lot of more medicalized supports out into our unsheltered population.
Any other questions or comments? I know this is the team that we rely on when things come to our council offices, so I really appreciate the work that you do. last presentation for today is New Beginnings, Bluegrass for their supportive services program.
So our housing navigation program is funded through Community Development Co-op grant. And our target population is folks with a serious mental illness, but kind of specifically who are coming out of a higher level of care. We've also included experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness, and then everyone has to fall below, well, vast majority, below HUD's definition of low income level. We also use it as a step down for our COC, or supportive housing program. And before either of you ask, because I feel like you would be, we have not had anyone step down over the last year. All of our COC exits have stepped up more like, but have that in place so that when somebody is ready to not need that financial assistance piece, to still be able to receive supportive services. The really big challenge with this program, especially over the last year, is, as we all know, lack of affordable housing and vouchers. Historically, we've really utilized the Olmsted Housing Initiative vouchers that are through the Department of Behavioral Health. Those went on a kind of permanent pause last year. They had just opened up the waiting list again, but that really put a halt in finding housing options for our people. Nevertheless, we persisted and had 18 individuals who were experiencing homelessness when they entered the program, and then 14 that we worked with for homeless prevention efforts. So they came to us, they were housed, facing eviction. A lot of too just had other needs to be able to continue to live independently, of connection to other resources, kind of ADLs and independent living skills, just kind of a wide array. We targeted, our target number was 30, we actually served 32 individuals. Demographic breakdown is pretty similar to our agency overall. Male, female is pretty close together, no transgender folks. We have a lot more white people than we do others. And age range is really kind of more in that middle thing. We've had a couple 18 to 24-year-olds who've come out of the hospital. It's kind of like their first experience with their mental illness. But so we only have a couple performance measures for this one. We say that 75% who enter experiencing homelessness will secure permanent housing. 83% of our folks have. It was 15 individuals. The 3 who did not move into it, one person moved out of town, had family, and then moved in out of the city. One person we lost contact with after they were admitted to a different hospital. And then we had one person who actually transferred to our COC PSH program, who just needed a lot more intensive supports than what CDBG program could provide, and by the time of trying to find housing had met chronic homelessness at that point. We've had 29 people overall who've obtained housing. That's between experiencing homelessness and then resolved their housing crisis. Everybody, 100%, have maintained it for 6 months and a year. We have, right now, 8 people who just haven't met that time frame yet. And right now, the only one is we have one person that passed away. So a lot of people, after they get secure their housing, still stay with us to work on those other skills, which is nice because there's not a financial incentive we provide to keep them around. So stay with us to kind of work on those other skills. And then some people with this program too, we kind of step down to almost more of a inactive kind of status. And so there's a handful of those people who don't really need all the intensive supports, but maybe a once or twice a month something, or somebody that they know that they can call when they have an issue with their SNAP recertification or something like that. So we just try to maintain that contact and that open door with them. So I said 100% maintain their housing for 6 months. One person I want to highlight, I have a really sweet success story. This individual was experiencing homelessness. We actually she was referred to us by Central Kentucky Recovery Center, where she had been for a while, and I believe she was in Eastern State for a bit of time before that. She actually discharged from CKRC to our supported living program house, a bed there, which is staffed 24/7, working on those independent living skills. And she's probably the most motivated person I've ever seen, because she's like, yes, this is great, I want to live on my own, I want to do all these things, and so worked really hard on all the things, and so was able to actually move into independent living in like less than a year after being in the supported living program, which kind of never happens with our those beds.
Is that your Olmsted house?
The other one, Kirsten
Okay.
House. The Olmsted House, they're not called.
Okay, I was just like, whoa.
No,
Okay.
they're not called anywhere in that one, unfortunately. We need one of those houses. But so was able to obtain a voucher through Department of Behavioral Health. Independent department has resolved court issues with custody of their children, rebuilt that relationship. They come and spend weekends with her. She's in the process of obtaining her GED. She already had disability income, but has started working and is back and forth with Social Security on how many hours she can to not interrupt her benefits. And then I believe her plan is she wants to get her GED and then become certified peer support specialist. So it's just like in the span of a very short time of like institution to fully implement. I'm very, very proud of her. I always shoot her horn. Ongoing email improvement, monitor data quality. I'm all up in HMIS trying to make sure that Jeff's office won't yell at me. Kind of our biggest things of goals to move forward is just trying to find more affordable housing options and trying to kind of find more of our target population. We do talk to the hospital at Eastern State and CKRC a lot, and we've had a lot of people looking at the level of care, and they're not quite at independent living quite yet, but trying to really open that door so that if there is somebody within that target population that we can help them do. And that's kind of it.
Questions, comments?
I got some thoughts. I tried to give everybody a pause so they could speak if they wanted to, but you gave some good statistics around 100% remaining in housing 6 and I believe you gave them 12 months.
I thought I'd throw a little extra
So I'm wondering, do you provide aftercare services as part of this?
Okay, so this is more like become essentially targeting case management. Like
Okay.
the name is misleading. We should
Okay.
probably change it with the, grant applications come and go. But it's really kind of evolved into long-term targeting.
So it's not transitional?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. The other question that I was gonna have was, and I don't think anybody's gonna answer this, but I assume that you all probably are thinking about how the recent executive order would impact you, because I know Olmsted funding is very much part of that conversation.
Yes.
Does that create additional concerns about folks that might be safely housed with Olmsted?
Absolutely. One thing we have been trying to work on, really for probably at least like the last 7-8 months, is because this came about last year of the pause on OHI funding and not knowing, and so trying to find alternate resources, like we're getting people signed up on subsidized housing lists. Everybody has their LHA voucher paperwork ready to go the moment one of those becomes available. So trying to connect to other resources as a safety net and to get them off of that bridge program. But as we know, we've had a couple of people who have moved to a different apartment and have subsidized units so that they can get on the wait list for that. But no, overall it is a very, very big concern.
Fingers concerned.
Yeah.
We're a little concerned.
I'm concerned. Well, especially, Ohio, it's, like 100 people in the state of Kentucky.
About how many of your 32 came from Eastern State directly?
So with our current crop, I have 4 from Eastern State, I had 5 from CKRC. I had 4 other people from Eastern State, referred from Eastern State, but they went to another program. And it was more just of like, caseloads at the time.
Yeah. Where do most of your folks get their mental health services from? Is it New Vista mostly, or a mix of
It's
some different?
kind of a mix. I'd say probably majority is New Vista, and then maybe one or two with Mountain Comprehensive Care, and then also between like Bluegrass Community Health Center and Health First Bluegrass, they have connections. And that's one thing too that we work with them on. Fortunately, when they're coming out of that higher level of care, they have appointment already set up, so we encourage those and help find alternate providers if that's something that they're interested in.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for this is one of the few programs I think that's specifically for SMI, right? So I mean.
And with something like the COC program, we have a lot of challenges with them not always meeting certain criteria, like being chronically homeless or currently being literally homeless. So I think this is one of those that has a little bit more flexibility to provide housing support without meeting really stringent criteria.
In your ongoing improvement section, you mentioned trying to do more to solicit like participant feedback. What are you thinking there?
We struggle with that so much. And I should have wrote it down. We switched because we used to have this really kind of long satisfaction survey and give out it 3 times a year. Once I actually looked at it, like I'm not feeling myself, like why would I? And so we got an official one that's evidence-based. It's like 1 page of overall kind of housing focused success. We don't have great response rates agency-wide over that. The feedback that we get from our clients is really kind of more at that personal level and designated toward their services. One thing that we've kind of done over the years is those little things before we have like a flex fund of these little things. And so in the beginning, we actually kind of put aside a little bit of money for our own kind of flex fund wrap services. And so someone is working all these things and doesn't have this one thing to work boots, I think we were just talking about the other day. We can help to get them to that full independence by being able to provide that full monetary assistance. But really, it's a lot of their communication preferences and case management, kind of like those more just individual micro things that we try to accommodate and work with. We want them to be happy and healthy and not fire us.
We're always trying to pare down our survey instruments because if it's longer than a few questions, people are like, nope.
That's all good. It's like, and we have them, and we mail them, hand them to them, and then an addressed envelope, and then we have them have like a little box that they popped in, they put it in. It's just, I promise, we're not going to do anything. We want to know. That's my thing. Like, if somebody's doing something bad, I want to know. How can we do better? Oh, no, it's fine.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Other public comments for the group? Any announcements anyone wants to make? Or things you want to share?
Go ahead. So we're going to talk more about this at Advocacy Committee next week when we share some federal policy updates. Obviously, I'm sure most people by now are familiar with the recent executive order heavily aimed at the population of persons experiencing homelessness, largely framed as being about public safety. We've had some events locally that have definitely brought that kind of conversation to our own community. Within the span of the last couple of weeks, we unfortunately had a double homicide where both the perpetrator and the victims were all unhoused persons. And then we've had 2 incidents, one of which made national news coverage of an unhoused person that assaulted somebody downtown. So there has been a press release about an increased focus on our downtown area and public safety. Some of that is definitely separate from us. Some of it's about larger safety issues amongst people that are more street involved and not solely focused on homelessness. But there's also been included in some of the coverage, expansion of street outreach services and greater collaboration with police. I just want to make sure that this group knows the spirit from which that is coming from, and that my office is being heavily included in efforts and conversations. We are working on a plan to expand our outreach teams in the interim. Hope Center's outreach team is going to be doing a lot more downtown and to some extent having to scale down some of the other efforts that they are doing. I can tell you with confidence that I was able to learn which officer is going to be assigned as our primary point of contact. And that's going to be Officer Norden, who I know a lot of you have worked with in some capacity. And I think that conveys this spirit that we're trying to approach this with. It's not going to be what we are seeing currently in Washington, D.C. It is going to be more of, let's get a dedicated team downtown that can spend more time getting to know people, developing rapport, and giving them alternatives to criminalization. We want them to have an ability to connect with us for services. And I'm going to be pushing for a lot of things out of this. For example, I immediately use this as a, hey, you know what would help this situation? Another shelter that we've been talking about since we released our shelter feasibility study in June. My intent is to use this as a platform to advocate for the resources that we need and to help move the conversation with the public to really understand that at its core, and I don't feel like this is a new message for us, at its core, this is a housing issue. And I think we have a public that is responding to a behavioral issue. And so they see us as failing to meet the need because they don't recognize that the primary problem is us lacking the resources to house people. So I would encourage you, David said this really well earlier, that when people come to him, he's saying that we need their help housing. So that needs to be one of our primary messages, not just from this office, but from each of our providers within our COC, within our network. We need to make sure that people understand we need them to dedicate units that they might own to renting to a program or renting just to an individual who's trying to exit homelessness and not hold that against them as a stigma. If they don't directly own property, do they have relationships with property managers or landlords? We need people that can help us to raise additional funds, whether that be through fundraising or through additional grant opportunities. We need them to advocate for public policies and legislation which prevent discrimination and that facilitate more movement towards permanent housing. And we need them to support affordable housing efforts. I know it shouldn't be controversial that we would want people to have affordable housing, but you would be surprised, and I'm sure we have 2 council members who can attest, that council chamber is generally packed when one of those affordable housing properties is on the docket, and it's not always in support. We need the kind of presence from our advocates that we had when we took our shelter feasibility study to the council. Over an hour of public comment was made that day, and only 2 of those comments were even remotely negative. We need that kind of support. So always give people that are asking you as a professional in this capacity what they can do. That is one piece that you can always give them right off. So please just help keep that message and know that as we do make more efforts in the downtown area, our dedication is towards offering people service connection.
Any other announcements for the group? Please make sure that you sign in. If you haven't yet, on the sheets over here by the table, we use that to help us track attendance for the minutes. So please sign in. And since that brings us to the end of our agenda, I want to say our next meeting is October 15th here in this room at 1:30, and we can adjourn. Thanks, everybody.